But we've been in Isaiah of late, in chapter 54, where we were last week. He points out that God wants to renew that covenant of marriage with his people, that he's going to be their protector, he's going to be the Lord of hosts, and no weapon formed against them is going to prosper. So the relationship between the Father and his creation is what Isaiah is talking about. In spite of all of the decline, in spite of all of the judgment, in spite of all of the discipline from him, the relationship between the Father and his creation is to be restored the way it was supposed to be from the very beginning. All because what makes it possible, what allows this to happen at all, is the work of Messiah, that the suffering servant from Isaiah chapter 53, the memra of God, whom God was pleased to bruise and cause him to suffer in order to bear the iniquities and sins and make the many righteous. So God, he's going to be the husband. He's going to be their defender. And when we get to Isaiah 55, we get to the invitation that seals the deal in many respects. That, in that ancient culture, the way a marriage, the way a relationship is sealed is with a covenant meal or a banquet. And that's how it is in Isaiah 55. This is in many ways describing this covenant banquet of joy. And it starts out with this. It says, "Ho, everyone who thirsts, come to the water. You who have no money, come buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without cost." To thirst or be hungry is to desire something that you need to sustain you, to keep you alive. That's some of our most basic needs. It's a need that we're going to, most of us at least try to fill several times a day, right? And you don't just eat once. Most of us, we don't just take a drink once. We are trying to meet this need several times a day. It's so convenient for us in the modern world, in America, to get food, to get water. Most of the food we eat, we didn't have to grow, we didn't have to raise or in any way work to produce it directly. We didn't, we have our water essentially brought to us, right? We didn't have to go and get it. We didn't have to put a jar down in a hole and carry it out and carry it back home. We pay for the product of other people's work. But when we are thirsty, when we are hungry, that means that we are in need. That means we are lacking. And the reality is, in a spiritual sense, we are without resources. We don't have the money to buy someone else's product. You who have no money, you don't really have the means to procure this for yourself, to satisfy this hunger and thirst, because we are so spiritually poor. But what's so great about this verse, this promise, in spite of all the difficulty and hardship we see in this world, is that God is the one doing the inviting to satisfy this need that we all have. If you are thirsty, if you are hungry, and it's more than just a physical thirst. It's more than just a physical hunger. It's a realization that you were lacking in a basic spiritual need, this connection. God is saying, come. And not just get the minimum, not just get the cheapest, but get the best. Buy the wine and milk. Come, yalach, it means to go, to walk, or come. Sometimes it's even translated as follow. And it can figuratively talk about a manner of life. If that word sounds a little familiar, it's very similar to the word halach, which means halacha, which is talking about the way of life that we are to live as his people. And so this invitation is open to everybody. It's open to everybody who is thirsty. Everyone who has, no money to pay, who is poor, who cannot provide for themselves, come and receive the King's abundance. Yeshua himself shared a similar word during the Feast of Tabernacles, the Feast of the Nations, in John chapter 7. He says, on the last and greatest day of the feast, Yeshua stood up and cried out loudly, if anyone is thirsty, let him come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scripture says, out of his innermost being will flow rivers of living water. This spring, this river of this living water, according to Jeremiah, is God himself. Jeremiah chapter 2 says, my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me. And he identifies himself as the spring of living water. And instead, they have dug their own cisterns, cracked cisterns that hold no water. He is the spring of living water. He is the source of all of that. And so what Yeshua is saying in John chapter 7, believing in him, that's tapping into the source. That is the source. He is the source, the spring of living water. And in forsaking him, then it's as if we are digging our own cistern. So God is the spring of living water. He's also referring to or alluding to a prophecy from Zechariah 14. He says, moreover, in that day, living waters will flow from Jerusalem. This is at the second coming. Half toward the eastern sea, half toward the western sea, both in the summer and in the winter. Adonai will then, when those things are happening, Adonai will then be king over all the earth. In that day, Adonai will be Echad, he'll be one, and his name, one. In the day when Adonai is king over all the earth, living waters will flow from Jerusalem. That spring, that source, will be flowing down from Jerusalem to the cup is essentially overflowing. The king is providing for all those under his authority, for all of his subjects. And what's amazing about this idea of being thirsty, it's also connected to the idea or the desire for true teaching, for the righteousness of God. That's what Yeshua himself is referring to back in Matthew chapter 5. In the Sermon on the Mount, he says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Righteousness is what we're lacking. That's what we need. We lack it in ourselves because we need Messiah to make us righteous. And the great thing is when we accept his invitation to come, we are satisfied. We find satisfaction. We find what we need in his teachings, in his word, in himself by faith. That's how our hunger and thirst is satisfied. That's how even those Aramaic translations, those Targums, understand this verse of Isaiah 55, verse 1. So this is that Aramaic translation. It says, ho, everyone that is willing to learn. If you're thirsty, if you're willing to learn, let him come and learn. And he that hath no silver, come, hear and learn. Come, hear and learn without price and money, doctrine that is better than wine and milk. See, that hungering and thirsting for righteousness is hungering and thirsting for the things of God, the things of his kingdom, his ways, his way of life. And a willingness to learn shows that you are hungry, shows that you are thirsty. To acknowledge that we need to be taught how to pursue after God and his ways. God said, Yeshua says that God is looking for worshipers like that, those who will seek him, those who will pursue after him in spirit and in truth. And he is willing to provide it at no cost. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to spend, thousands of dollars on a 4-year degree every semester, right? He is willing to provide it to anyone who is willing to learn. And he is generous. And he actually wants his children to learn. In the first century area, the belief that sound teaching and doctrine, they understood that sound teaching and doctrine was the highest form of food, which is what Messiah is supposed to bring, Messiah's perfect Torah instruction. There are several different rabbinic, statements about this. This is Kohelet Rabbah 11. Says the Torah that a man learns in this world is vanity in comparison to the Torah of Messiah. What he is going to bring, what he is going to teach, what he is going to awaken and enlighten in us. So what Yeshua is bringing, he's the one that always comes and he speaks, not just as the teachers of the law, but as one who teaches with such authority. When you read when you look at some of their understanding of these things, they explain the difference between the Torah that we have in the Scriptures and what Messiah brings. The one that we can see, they talk about in terms of the black letters. And in the Torah, there's 304,805 words, or letters, in the Torah. But it's said, by these various sages and rabbis that the complete Torah actually has 600,000 letters that are hidden, and they're hidden in the white spaces, is how they talk about it. That there is the mysteries, the hidden things of God are there even in the space between the letters. But they say this about Messiah: when our righteous Messiah comes, we shall also understand the blank spaces within the Torah. He's going to fulfill it. He's going to fully explain the Torah. He didn't come to abolish, but to do what? To fulfill, to fully explain, to teach correctly, to teach to its fullness. There's a Yemenite midrash that says, in the future, the Holy One, blessed is he, will seat the Messiah in the supernal yeshiva, the place of teaching. And they will call him the Lord, just as they call the Creator. And all those who walk on earth will come and sit before him to hear a new Torah and a new commandment and new commandments and the deep wisdom which he teaches Israel. And no person who hears a teaching from the mouth of Messiah will ever forget it. That's the kind of provision for those who are hungry and thirsty that Messiah wants to give to those who call on his name. To give the best, the most sound teaching that nourishes us and strengthens us and draws us closer to him. But instead, we waste what we do have on worthless things. That's what Isaiah 55 verse 2 talks about. Where he says, why do you spend money for what is not bread, your wages for what does not satisfy? Listen diligently to me and eat what is good and delight yourself in abundance. Far too many, if you remember the old song, some of y'all are too young, but I remember roller skating in the late 70s and early 80s when we were looking for love in all the wrong places. Y'all know that song? Anybody else roller skate to that song? Just a few? Yeah. I'm dating myself with that one, aren't I? But that's what we're doing. We have all these expenses. We spend all of these things on stuff that is wrong. We're pursuing truth everywhere where but him and his word. Not based on the Torah, not consistent with his word, not pointing us to the Messiah. There's lots of ideas, there's lots of philosophies, and religions have oftentimes good sounding claims and truths on the surface. But they don't lead us to his banquet. They don't lead us to his Messiah. They don't lead us to the goal of the Torah. See that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception. according to the tradition of men and the basic principles of the world, rather than Messiah. You could look at a lot of different things that sound good, but they're taking you away from Him. What we're also seeing in our day is in 2 Timothy 4, for the time will come when they will not put up with sound instruction. Right? And that's the good food, that's the good bread and drink. But they will pile up for themselves teachers in keeping with their own desires to have their ears tickled, and they will turn away from hearing the truth and wander off to myths. That's what it means, when you're saying, why do you spend money for what is not bread? Your wages for what does not satisfy. Instead, we need to invest our time, our attention on those things that are true, because everything else is getting in the way. Everything else is wasting our time. Instead, we invest in those things that lead to the Messiah, to the Word, the goal of the Torah. And again, the Targums, that Aramaic translation confirms that idea as well. It says, wherefore do you weigh out your silver for that which is not food, and your wealth for that which satisfieth not? Hearken diligently to my word, to that memra, that expression of His presence. And ye shall eat that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in the fatness. We must hearken, we must listen to the word, the memra, the visible representation, the active agent, the image of the invisible God, from whom, Matthew 17, it says, where on the Mount Transfiguration, He says, this is my Son whom I love. With Him I am well pleased. And then what does it say? Listen to Him. From the Word, from the Memra, the Messiah, we receive the best food, the best abundance, the best teaching and doctrine, even the bread of life. According to one Midrash, the Messiah, the Word, will bring a new and full Torah. This is Talpiot. The Holy One, blessed is He, will sit and expound the new Torah, which He will give through the Messiah. New Torah means the secrets and the mysteries of the Torah which have remained hidden until now. And these mysteries, they are revealed in the days of fulfillment, the fulfillment of the Torah that is the daily bread, the spring of living water, the kind of teaching that makes sense of the phrase, man does not live by bread alone, but what? By every word that comes from the mouth of God. Right, the Father is preparing a banquet, a meal for His people, and His word and His teaching, in order to draw us close to Him and firmly establish that relationship, that covenant together through that what's the Prince of David. Back in Isaiah 55, he puts it like this. He says, incline your ear and come. Again, it's that invitation. Come to me. Listen so that your soul may live. And I will make an everlasting covenant with you, the trustworthy loyalty to David. Behold, I made him a witness to the peoples, a leader and commander for the peoples. And so if you want to live, you're going to listen to him. You're going to hearken to him. You're going to incline your ear to him. And you will take note of that invitation, that proposal of this covenant, that in keeping with the promise made to David, and the one who is bringing this about, the one who is fulfilling this promised covenant to David, is going to be the witness. He's going to be the testimony to the peoples. And notice it's peoples. It's not singular, it's plural. It's not just the people. It's not just the Jewish people. It's not just the people of the covenant, but to all peoples who hear his voice, who are hungry and thirsty. But for them, he is going to be a leader. The word is nagid. It's ruler, captain, or prince for all of these people. He's going to even be the one who is their commander, the one who is giving their command. He's from the word sava, It's one who gives orders or charges, the one who appoints or ordains. And what that word for commander, the first time it's used is when God is commanding Adam back in Genesis chapter 2, verse 16. And the first 7 times that word is used, it's only used of God. It's related to the word Sabaoth, where we get the Lord of hosts. But this trustworthy loyalty to David, this covenant of David, the person in whom it is fulfilled, that all the peoples are going to come under his authority. And those who live, that your soul may live, those who live will accept his rule. He is going to be God of all the earth. That is proof that he has not forgotten or broken his promise to David. But when you look at Isaiah's day, that promise to David was around 1000 BC. Isaiah was in the 700s, between 740 and 700. So that's almost 300 years prior, and a lot had happened since then. A great falling away. There's many strayings from the paths of righteousness. But God has not forgotten his promise. He's going to keep his word. By keeping his word, that includes the blessings that he has, but also it includes the curses. The blessings for obedience, the curses for disobedience. He's going to keep his word. Everything that Israel and Judah were experiencing is God keeping his word. He has not forgotten nor forsaken his promise. And he's constantly calling them to hear, to turn their ear, to better hear his voice and obey the terms of that covenant relationship. Again, those Targums point to sound doctrine and teaching of the Torah, particularly as spoken by the Word, the Memra, the Messiah. That he should be obeyed because he is the one who is appointed to fulfill the promise of the Davidic king. It says, "Incline your ear and receive instruction of my law. Obey my word. And your soul shall be quickened, and I will make an everlasting covenant with you, even the mercies of David, which are sure. Behold, I have appointed him a prince, a king, and a ruler over all the kingdoms." The Memra, the Messiah, is king over all the nations, and they all will obey his voice. And the people, of Israel and Judah are to be the light, to draw and encourage all of those nations to come under his authority. Verse 5 says that. He says, "Behold, you will summon a nation you do not know, and a nation that did not know you will run to you, because of Adonai your God and the Holy One of Israel, for he has glorified you." So unlike what happened a few chapters earlier, back in Isaiah 39, with Hezekiah, the king. If you remember, he brought in these envoys and these emissaries from Babylon, and he started showing off everything in his kingdom. He started showing off the treasures of his kingdom and all of his secret places. He showed them all through the temple and all the blessings of God. And it actually enticed Babylon. It's like, well, we got to get a piece of that action. So by showing off to the envoys of Babylon, he enticed them to come. This time, God's people are going to call and summon all the nations, all the goyim, those that they don't know, the ones they have no relationship with, no treaty or covenant with, the ones they don't even share the same God or anything. And they're going to come. They're going to summon those, and they're going to run to them because he has glorified the kingdom, glorified Israel, glorified Judah. He has shown his glory to the world through his people. And they're going to run to his people because of the great and glorious things God is doing for and in them. in bringing everything to the fullness of time in the Messiah. That's interesting. The first time that word for run, says you will run to you. The first time the word run is used is in Genesis chapter 18. It's verse 2, when Abraham gets up from where he's sitting and he runs towards 3 visitors. He runs to greet them. He runs to serve them. He's really running to who? He's running to the Lord, isn't he? He's running to Adonai. And as Abraham is running to Adonai, the nations follow. The more the Jewish people run to Adonai, the nations run to his people. If they're running to Adonai and we're running after them, where are we going as the nations? We're also going to Adonai. We're all running toward him. First to the Jew, then to the Gentiles. As John 4 put it in the discussion with the woman the Samaritan woman at the well, you worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But we, the nations, run to them because of all the great and glorious things that he has done in them and through them and for them. And that's continuing in this day. And so with that, he says, seek Adonai while he may be found. Call on him while he is near. This is an essential verse because both Jew and Gentile must seek Adonai. Both must run to him, just like Abraham did. The great promise in this verse is that he actually can be found. That he actually is near. He's not in some distant place. He's not unattainable. He's not unknowable. He's not in a state of existence that we can never have any connection to. He wants to be found. That's the whole point of him sending his servants, the prophets. Excuse me. It's the whole point in sending the suffering servant in Isaiah 53, the Messiah, to make a way for us to come to him, to run to him, to come into his presence without our sin getting in the way. God wants us to be in his presence. He wants to be found, to call upon him, to worship him. Yeshua confirmed this in Matthew 7. He says, ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks it shall be opened. If you're hungry, if you're thirsty, we ask, and he is going to provide. He can be found if you are genuinely seeking after him. Paul confirmed this in Acts 17. He says, from one man, one blood, he made every nation of men to live on the face of the earth, having set appointed times and the boundaries of their territory. They were to search for him, and perhaps grope around for him and find him. Yet he is not far from each one of us. Everything that he says right there is consistent with Isaiah. Seek Adonai while he may be found. Call on him while he is near. What makes it possible? Since we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, since all of us like sheep have gone astray, is that we repent, we turn, we trust in the fact that our iniquity was laid upon him, that by our stripes we are healed. He says, let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous one his thoughts. Let him return to Adonai, so he may have compassion on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. Both Jew and Gentile are filled with that kind of wickedness, that wickedness in our hearts, filled with the breaking of the Torah. It's a brokenness from Adam that must be healed. And the way the Father has accomplished that, the way he pulled it off, The idea that he wants to abundantly pardon is astounding, because the sin that we have done against him is great. The debt that we owe is extensive, but he is willing to cleanse us and to heal us. But he never does it the way we would think. He never accomplishes it in the manner that we could have guessed. And he says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways." We didn't advise him. We didn't predict all of this, of what he would do. "For as the heavens are higher than earth, so my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." The mechanism God used to restore us to covenant and relationship with him would not have been the path you and I would have chosen or come up with. The suffering of Messiah as the means to redeem. That's hard to accept. It's hard to understand. Paul put it like this in 1 Corinthians. The message, the message of the cross, the message of that suffering, that are not our thoughts or our ways, it's foolishness to those who are perishing. But to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, "I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and bring to nothing the understanding of the intelligent." Where is the wise one? Where is the Torah scholar? Where is the debater of this age? Hasn't God made foolish the wisdom of the world? Foreseeing that in God's wisdom, the world through its wisdom did not know God, God was pleased through the foolishness of the message proclaimed to save those who believe. For Jewish people ask for signs, and Greek people seek after wisdom, but we proclaim Messiah crucified, a stumbling block to Jewish people and foolishness to Gentile people. But to those who are called, both Jewish and Greek, Messiah, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. We may not understand the reasons why he does the things that he does and the way that he does, and we may not understand how it works. The question is, does it work? We must trust the reality that whatever he does, it's going to accomplish his purpose. He doesn't require our understanding. He doesn't require our approval. Most of the processes of the world that we see happening around us, they go on whether we understand them or not. He asks us to trust him. We trust in the outcome and the promise of where he is taking us. He says this in verse 10. He says, "For as the rain and the snow come down from heaven," this is part of that song, "and do not return there without having watered the earth, making it bring forth and sprout, giving seed to sow and bread to eat, so my word will be that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me in vain, or without accomplishing its purpose, but will accomplish what I intend, and will succeed in what I sent it for." Right? Whether we understand it or whether we don't, it's going to accomplish his purposes. You don't have to understand all the details. You don't have to have all the mysteries explained. You don't have to have all of your questions answered, although those are nice. Don't believe me. I'm one that loves to have all the questions answered. But it's going to go on. It's going to happen whether we do understand or not. It's going to succeed what he intends. And even our struggles, even our suffering accomplishes his purposes. Just as the suffering of Messiah accomplished it in a way that we could have never predicted. And then so what is the result? Where does it go? What is the goal that God is trying to accomplish in these moments in life, and these struggles, these judgments, these disciplines, that he's sending Messiah to suffer on our behalf. Isaiah ends this chapter with the heart of God and where he is taking both Jew and Gentile, his nation and all the nations, a restoration of his kingdom. He says, yes, you will go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will break forth before you singing, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Israel and Judah, all Israel will know joy and peace. The mountains and the hills, symbolic of all of kingdoms. That's what the mountains and the hills are referring to, are kingdoms and territories and nations. They'll be celebrating with them because they have run to them in faith. The trees of the field, trees often symbolize that of people. The field representing all the places where the seed has been scattered, where it's been sown. Those people scattered all over are going to clap their hands and going to rejoice, because in that day, all the effects of the fall will be restored. You remember those kind of effects that the fall had from Genesis 3. He says, cursed is the ground because of you. With pain you will eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles will sprout for you. You will eat the plants of the field, and by the sweat of your brow you will eat your food. You're going to be hungry, and you're going to have to work to satisfy it, right? But Isaiah finishes with that being changed. Instead of the thorn bush, a cypress will come up. Instead of the briar, the myrtle will come up. And it will be a memorial to Adonai as an everlasting sign that will never be cut off. That is the future where all of the effects of our brokenness is reversed and in change. That's the joy. That's what we have to look forward to through the work of Messiah. And in that day, the full banquet of God, when the covenant is fully implemented and enjoyed, that's when the many will be able to gather together and shout and sing for joy and clap their hands. That's Matthew chapter 8. He says, moreover, I tell you that many will come from the east and the west and all the places where they have been scattered. They will recline at table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. When Messiah has set everything right, when he has given us the fullness of his Torah, when he has fulfilled and brought to pass everything that has been promised, it will be a banquet and a time of celebration.